my hair was my favorite thing. And when I lost it, it like shattered me. But to be completely honest with you, it's probably something that I'm more grateful for than anything else because I think that it forced me to consider beauty in a way that I hadn't, especially the end of this question is how has it influenced the way you see yourself as a woman? And like, I think that it has allowed me to not see everything in a box the way that I grew up seeing it. And the place that I grew up was very well intentioned, but it was very you know, girls look like this and boys look like this and they dress like this and they act like this. And I think that losing my hair, I think that I always kind of would have sat a little outside of the box, but I think that losing my hair forced me outside of the box. Maybe thank you before I was ready. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short. My name is Hannah. I'm a bald Leo, and I'm a photographer. Okay. I can just keep going. Okay. As a photographer, how does it feel to be on the other side of someone else's camera? Very vulnerable. Really. I don't let a lot of people take my picture because I had a really hard time letting go of the way other people perceived me for a really long time. I started photography as a way to kind of document myself as I was going through my hair loss when I was 13, but I didn't know that. Like, in my head, I was just in my room being like a 13 or 14-year-old. Like, I'm not trying to make this seem more pretentious than it actually is. I was a 13 or 14-year-old girl in the mid 2000s with a camera, and I didn't realize that I was starting this self portrait journey. I really was just trying to take pictures in a way that didn't let people know I was wearing a wig. Because I like cut my bangs really stupidly. Except the difference between like me and my friend was that mine didn't grow back. And like I had to like go to my parents and be like, I need a new wig. And they'd be like, what did you do? And I'd be like, don't ask. So yeah, definitely it feels vulnerable to be on the other side of someone else's camera. And I am trying to let that go because one of the best things I learned in grad school, and one of my favorite pieces of advice that I've ever learned was we were working on our papers as we did all throughout grad school. And one of my professors saw everybody was getting really in their heads about the work that they were putting out. And, we came back with revisions and, nobody was happy with what they were putting out into the world. And my professor was like, you guys need to stop. Like, and it was specifically our thesis, actually, which is like the most important paper of your graduate career, arguably. And she goes, this is one version of one story that you're telling. And I think that hearing that and putting that into not only like my thesis work, but into every other piece of work I put out into the world really just made me like not afraid to just like kind of be stupid, I guess. And that like, I don't know, like this is the way that you're seeing me and the way that other people are seeing me. And so yeah, have kind of tried to lean into the fact that like, it's not that deep. Like, it's okay. It's just one moment. Like, it is that deep and it's also not at the same time. Like, it doesn't matter and it does matter. Um, I'm sorry, that's such like a nebulous response. But okay. Talk to me about your photography. Where does your inspiration and drive to create come from? I feel like most creatives, it's like obsessiveness. I've never met another creative, like true, deep within their loins creative that wasn't obsessive and a little crazy about it. So I would say that my inspiration and drive to create comes from that obsession. If I see something in my head that I need to do, I will probably actualize it in 3 or 4 different ways before I get the final version. Back to the first answer. There will probably be 4 or 5 versions of something very, very similar that I will work on. And I might go back to it and create a better version because that's subjective. A lot of people like the first version I put out, and I prefer the third or the fourth or none of them. And it really doesn't matter because it's there. But my inspiration, I really like garbage. And I get a lot of inspiration from being a little bit uncomfortable all the time. And I think that, God, hear me, there's a through line. I think that like garbage relates in that we don't want to see it. We want it to be out of our minds. We don't want to have to look at it, which is why I think I draw a lot of inspiration from like specifically textile artists who like create out of things that were going to be thrown away, or like secondhand clothes, or like why I don't know, I'm really drawn to things that make us like a little bit uncomfortable because like we try to keep everything very polished and very clean and very presentable, and I think that like actually living doesn't really look like that. um you express yourself through your art. What do you feel it allows you to express that words don't? I think I'm I'm a particularly anxious person, and I feel like I was telling you, I put my foot in my mouth a lot, and I feel like my art lets me say the words that are like not the wrong thing. Um, yeah, I don't know why I'm tearing up. I'm not even talking about anything like specifically. I'm just a very emotional girl. Um, yeah, what do you feel like it allows you to express that words don't? I think like a lot of like the stupidity. Um, I think that like a lot of like the why am I crying? Oh my God. I really like art that is just like so not afraid of being a little stupid. I really like art that, like I said, makes you a little bit uncomfortable. And I guess like not even necessarily makes you think, but just we reach a certain age where we take ourselves too seriously. And I don't ever want to lose that. I've had a lot of like, why am I crying? I was like thinking of all of like the really funny jokes I was gonna say when I got in here that I would like slip into the interview. I was like, okay, let me have my canned bits ready. Um, yeah, I think I was exposed to a lot of really like traumatic things like super early on in my life. And I grew up, I feel like, a lot faster by the time I was 18 or 19. I had a lot on my shoulders. Um, Not so much from the external. I feel like I was pretty well adjusted. I feel like had friends, I had all of these things, and I don't know, I think sometime in my mid 20s I kind of like went back to being that little kid. And I didn't really want to leave that. Like, I found it when I was probably 25 or 26. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I found it when I was probably 25 or 26, and I don't want to lose it again. I don't know. I want to bring that joy, that stupidity that kids have, like in their work and like in their life. And yeah, we need to go to a different question. I need to stop tearing up. Maybe now is when I can make some self-deprecating jokes. Talk to me about alopecia. How has it shaped you? How has it influenced the way you view yourself as a woman today? Um, it was awful. I was 13. Um, oh my God, I've only ever written about this. I've never said this on video. I've told this so many times. I was 13. I was in seventh grade, and I didn't really know what was happening. Oh my God, my best friend had just moved away, and that's so crazy. Oh my God, God, I've written about this so many times. I've like said this in person to so many people and not cried. What did you put in the air? Yeah, it was super traumatizing. I was super mean. I was super mean to myself. I was super mean to everybody around me. Um, I need to make a joke or I'll cry, but growing up, my dad always told me that I was hatched out of an egg. He used to like knock on things and he'd be like, Hannah, do you hear that? And I'd be like, what? He'd be like, that's the sound you made when you were hatching. And everybody calls me egghead now, so I feel like it was a little bit of foreshadowing. But yeah, I wore wigs for I wore wigs for 6 or 7 years. If you knew me during that time, you didn't. Um, I remember I was in seventh grade when I first lost my hair, and I was going through it. It took about, I want to say, 4 months for me to fully lose all of my hair because I refused to shave my head, which was like the most logical thing to do. But please don't try to be logical to a 13-year-old seventh grade girl, especially not one who's losing her hair. So I let it all fall out. I really did look like Gollum toward the end. But I wore a hat every day in seventh grade, which I don't know if they still care about hats, but when I was in school, you were not allowed to wear a hat. And I also went to a school that required uniforms. And I remember I was so scared about people being able to tell that I lost my hair. People didn't give a shit about my hair. They cared about the fact that I was allowed to wear a hat inside, and they weren't. So it probably would have been less noticeable if I had just worn a wig and forgotten about it because I went to school with plenty of people who wore wigs. And it wasn't anything weird, and I feel like I would have stood out less if I had just worn a damn wig and not put a hat over the wig. But I was very particular, and the hairline of the wig didn't look like my hairline. And so I was like, well, everybody else is obviously going to be able to tell. And it sucked. I wore a wig, man, like, I have four older siblings, and both of my parents, and all of them didn't understand, like, why I felt this way. They tried really hard. Sorry. And my parents had a boat on a river, like where we grew up, and we would take it out during the summertime. And I wore a wig on the fucking boat, man. It was 90 degrees, and I remember wearing a wig on the river. And I remember, my parents being like, "Are you sure you don't want to take it off?" We tubed. I tubed with that shit on. I had a life jacket and a wig. Um, and like I can laugh about myself now because it's so ridiculous. And I'm so glad that my parents and like nobody forced me to do anything. And like they really tried to get me to take it off and I wouldn't. And I look at pictures now and I'm like, girl, like you could have not had that tan line. Like you couldn't have wasted so much money because the other thing is like there was a river wig and there was like a regular wig and the river wig only went in the river, and it looked like shit as you can imagine. um and I just like, and there was like an exercise wig, so there was a river wig and they were all the same wig. It was just like the river wig was the oldest one and it was the one that went in the water, so that was the one I wore. And then that same wig was the one I wore like biking because I also biked. I just had like extra padding, I guess, in case I fell. Um, it wasn't until I was 19 or 20. I was my freshman year of college. I still wore a wig, but I was living away from home, so I guess, and I wasn't in my hometown, so maybe it felt a little easier to experiment with things. And so I started wearing a scarf, specifically a pashmina. And that was also not conducive to like do anything in. But I just like was not gonna let my head out, I guess, for whatever reason. And I think part of it was uh I I waddled when I walked. I was a chubby little kid. I had a lisp that I trained myself out of. I My hair was my favorite thing. And when I lost it, it like shattered me. But to be completely honest with you, it's probably something that I'm more grateful for than anything else because I think that it forced me to consider beauty in a way that I hadn't, especially the end of this question is how has it influenced the way you see yourself as a woman? And like, I think that it has allowed me to not see everything in a box the way that I grew up seeing it. And the place that I grew up was very well intentioned, but it was very you know, girls look like this and boys look like this and they dress like this and they act like this. And I think that losing my hair, I think that I always kind of would have sat a little outside of the box, but I think that losing my hair forced me outside of the box. Maybe thank you before I was ready. And maybe if it had happened like I don't know, maybe it happened right when it should have. But it definitely it definitely forced myself to consider things that I hadn't ever really considered. As far as like what I see as like a valid form of self-expression, which is like everything now. I didn't really ever think about it after a certain point, but when I first was dealing with it, I didn't feel very much like a woman. I didn't really know what trans was. I didn't really know what gender dysphoria was. But I didn't really understand why I didn't really understand why I couldn't accept myself, I guess, or why like other people couldn't seem to accept me. I felt like other people were trying to like push me into a specific kind of box, and it usually came from a very well-intentioned place because people didn't want me to seem too different or be made fun of or something like that. But I think really that probably would have helped if people could have just um, not tried so hard to protect me. I think when it first happened, and like I guess years later, I think that I think that I wasn't ever really supposed to like sit in that box, especially as far as like femininity and like womanhood are concerned, because that frankly, fuck the box. Anybody can kick the box. You can sit in the box. It's fine. You don't have to leave the box. But if you feel a toe going out of the box, maybe leave the box. Okay. Ah, okay. Make me cry again. Thank you. Um, you said life doesn't have to be taken so seriously. What helped you shift into that perspective? I feel like I've alluded to this in some of my other answers, but to anybody younger than me or older than me, everybody is always going to have something to say about what you do, who you are, where you are, what you're doing. It literally doesn't matter. And I mean that in like so sincerely the best way. I've lost people before they were supposed to be taken, and or people were taken from me before I feel like they should have been. And me taking everything so seriously didn't make it hurt any less. I think that when we are so conditioned to having to act a certain way or present ourselves a certain way, I think it gets in the way of being who we really are, who we need to be in life, in the moment, for whoever our loved ones are. And I think, and don't misconstrue this. This does not mean like go gamble and go and go do everything with reckless abandon. Be be strategic, but it's okay to do what you want. It's okay to do the really scary thing that no one else in your life has ever done. It's okay to be a little stupid. It's okay. Everything is always going to work out. That was the other thing that my dad always said to me growing up. And my dad is simultaneously the most serious and the least serious person I have ever met in my life. He was scary when he was angry, as I feel like most dads can be. Like, just go away. Just, like, cool down for a second. But, he's so funny. And I remember I was always so afraid of disappointing him and making him angry, mostly disappointing him. And I remember it was one of the first times we had done a cross-country drive together. My family did a lot of those growing up because we had a lot of family in a lot of different places. And I was maybe 10 or 11, and it was just my dad and me, and we were checking into a hotel, and my dad, he pulls under the little car park where you can like leave the car before you go and check in. The key thing is that it's a temporary parking spot. And my dad leaves me in the car, he leaves it running, and he goes, "I'll be right back, I'm gonna go check in. Just stay here." He goes, "If you come in, just grab the keys." I say, "Okay." I stay in the car, and he was in there for a second, and I said, "He's taking a really long time." So I go in there, and he goes, "Hey, what's up?" He goes, "You have the keys?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he goes, "Where are they?" I said, they're in the car. And he goes, is the car locked? I said, I don't know. And we go back out to the car, and the car was locked and running. And I started crying because I was really upset that I had locked the keys in the car, and my dad drove a truck, and gas isn't cheap. And why are you, he was like, why are you crying? And I was like, because the keys are in the car. I was like, I locked the keys in the car, and the car is running. And he was like, we'll call a locksmith. He was like, it's not that big of a deal. And he told me, and something else that he told me that like didn't really ring or like didn't really resonate with me until many, many years later, which was shit happens. Shit always happens. Um, and like, thank you, Dad. That's why I don't take it so seriously, except the things that should be taken seriously, like your relationships and your job if you care about that. Um, um, but yeah, very long-winded way of answering that question. Um, if your younger self was here right now, what would you say to her? If she was before she lost her hair, I would say get ready, and I would say have a pair of clippers ready because you would save yourself so much time and energy and frankly embarrassment of trying to hide yourself. And also, please don't wear a wig on the river. You're gonna have a really bad tan line for like 8 years, and it's gonna take you a really long time to get rid of it. And you deserve to get some sun on your head as long as you wear some sunscreen. Um, yeah. Ah, if your future self was here right now, what would she tell you to stop holding back? Um, One of my favorite things is I'm very much looking forward to being in my 60s, specifically 65. Um, and I'm going to imagine the 65-year-old version of me who's probably wearing some similar version of the same outfit, but probably with a lot more holes in it, because she probably never learned how to properly mend her clothes. And she's just going to keep wearing them. But I hope she would say, continue what you're doing. Um, you have so much that you're on the cusp of learning about. I think she told me to stay curious. I think she's probably had like 45 hobbies at this point. She's still probably taking pictures, hopefully. She's still probably following, I mean, he's my fiance now, but he's going to be my husband in a couple months, and she's probably still following him around. She's probably still going to his shows and listening to his listening to him tell her what he wants her to pick up out of his shows, and she's probably still critiquing his work even though she thinks he did a really good job on it. And she's probably trying to make things up to critique him on, but she really doesn't have anything negative to say. Because Adam, if and when you watch this, I would like the world to know that I have to write a thesis every time I watch one of his shows. Uh, I damn well near need a notepad when I watch one of the shows he does the sound for. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. What is the biggest lesson life is teaching you right now? What are you learning to love about yourself? Um, I think the biggest lesson that life is teaching me, that it has continued to teach me, literally my whole life, is to just be flexible. You can't control anything. Like, you can. Please don't let that be a reason that you don't take control over something. But, like, I hate to be super corny, but there really is, like, it really is so crazy how every time something bad happens, there's always going to be something good that happens on the other side of it, and you just need to know where to look for it, or where to open your heart up to. I think that a lot of times we go into situations thinking that we have the answer and that we know best and that we come in as the expert. And I think that in a lot of ways it's really good to come in like that, because you need to be confident, you need to be sure of yourself. But I also think it's really important to know when you don't know. And I think that we don't know most of the time, no matter how much money we make, no matter how accomplished we are. Um I think that us thinking that we don't need to pay attention to the ebbs and flows of things, um, I think really is a disservice, because when you look at the ebbs and flows and are happy about a canceled plan. You don't know. Like, I don't know. Just write it out. What are you learning to love about yourself? I mean, I would say I love myself, but there are some things. I would say one thing is I already said this, but I I put my foot in my mouth, and I think I'm just trying to learn that it's really not that deep most of the time. Most people, shockingly, will tell you how they feel if you say something that they don't like. And so I think not getting in my head when I say something or do something, um, because we need to give credit to the people who are around us. They'll tell us when we're doing something wrong or when we hurt their feelings, and I think just kind of trusting that is probably good. Um, okay. Last one. Okay. How has it felt to be seen in the hot seat today? Biggest takeaway? Any final thoughts? Um, Great, other than hopefully not hearing my voice crack. I don't want to do that. Um, but no, in all honesty, it's been really cool if you're thinking about applying. Maybe apply when Tally does not have as many applications, but you should definitely apply and be seen. Um, Biggest takeaway. It hits a lot harder when you say the words instead of writing them. Because I have been bald for most of my life, and I tell these stories jokingly, constantly. Um, Not in many, many years has telling this out loud made me cry. I think it's because all of the jokes that I had that normally go with it went out the window, so I didn't have any excuse other than to be sincere. Um, but no, really, really, really good, and be stupid. Um, and thank you for having me here. Thank you. All right.